The movie opens with a young, pretty girl reading in a cemetery. She sits on her mother's grave as she absorbs the electrifying words of a Gothic story. Her name's Mary Shelley. Mary is the daughter of a very important and infamous mother, whose work was published in the 18th century, and she desires to follow in her mother's footsteps someday. Literature and books are Mary's life, and have been ever since she learned how to read. Her father, William, who is also a writer and a philosopher, taught Mary to be smart and an avid reader. Sadly for Mary, her father's wife Mary Jane doesn't think it's proper for a lady to walk around with her head in the clouds. She constantly pesters Mary to help with the housework and at the family's bookshop. The bookshop isn't going very well. William has many debts to pay and a family to look after. Besides Mary, he has 2 more children, a stepdaughter named Claire, and his son William. One day, as Mary is writing her own horror story, her stepmother interrupts her to demand she goes to work in the bookshop. Mary refuses to go because she already finished her tasks, but Mary Jane insists. She tries to grab Mary's notebook, and they end up arguing. When William arrives in the room, Mary Jane's on the floor after she tripped and fell. She accuses Mary of pushing her. After the argument, and Mary Jane's insistence that she can't live in the same house as Mary, William decides to send his daughter to a friend's house. His excuse is that he hopes Mary will have enough solitude and retrospection to write her book without any interruption. Mary isn't very happy to be taken away from her family. Despite not liking Mary Jane, she loves Claire and her little brother William. In the following days, Mary packs her bags and moves to Scotland to live with William Baxter and his daughter Isabel. Her new hosts are very nice and friendly, much to Mary's relief. The house is huge and in the middle of the Scottish Highlands. It's very different from the hustle of London, and too silent for Mary's tastes. On her first night, she can't sleep because of the graveyard silence. She wakes Isabel, and she takes her to feel her mother's presence. The 2 girls bond over losing their mothers, and Mary doesn't feel so alone anymore. Weeks go by, and Mary finds out that living in Scotland isn't as bad as she first feared. She enjoys going on picnics with Isabel and drinking wine while staring at the stars. It's quite peaceful and brings a lot of inspiration for her to write. Not only that, but Baxter always throws parties where writers come and share their works. It's at one of those parties that Mary meets a handsome young writer named Shelley. Shelley is a fan of Mary's parents, and as they talk, they find out they have a lot in common. Mary finds Shelley intelligent and charming. He's great with his words, and his poetry touches her heart and soul. Shelley also admires Mary's beauty and how fiery she seems when she talks about writing. Mary's life has never been better. She falls hard for Shelley, entranced by his pretty words and sarcastic sense of humor. Sadly, she has to go back to London because Claire is sick. Mary isn't happy that she needs to leave right after she found a place to belong. She can't even say goodbye to Shelley before she goes. Back in London, she acts coldly towards her father. Although he allowed her freedom to find herself, and it worked, she still resents how he got rid of her as if she were a nuisance. All because of Mary Jane. Things get worse when she finds out that Claire isn't sick. She's only pretending so that Mary could return home. After that, Mary's life goes back to being boring day after day. Nothing impresses her anymore, and she only wishes to see Shelley again in the Scottish Highlands. Much to her surprise, one day Shelley shows up at her house to be William's protégé. Shelley pretends not to know Mary, something that confuses her at first. She soon understands that Shelley wanted to be closer to her, and being her father's protégé would work perfectly. William cluelessly accepts Shelley as his protégé. As the days go by, they spend all their free time together, talking about philosophy and literature. Mary believes that people should love as they desire, and marriage isn't so important to her. Shelley agrees with her views, and it's a great relief to him that she thinks like that. A few days after they meet again, Shelley kisses Mary for the first time in a church, after she takes him to her mother's grave. Mary feels her heart bursting with happiness, and she's certain that she's found the love of her life. The only person who knows about their relationship is Claire, and she shares Mary's juvenile excitement about finding love. One day, though, Mary finds out that Shelley wasn't being as forthcoming with her as she imagined. A pretty woman shows up outside the bookshop, introducing herself as Shelley's wife. They even have a daughter together. Her name's Harriet. Mary is stricken, but she manages to compose herself. She informs Harriet that she doesn't know where Shelley is, and turns to leave with Claire. Before she can go, Harriet orders her to stay away from Shelley. She's heard the rumors surrounding the 2 of them, and she warns Mary that Shelley isn't an easy man to love. It's not the first time he has cheated on her with another girl, and it certainly won't be the last. Mary refuses to be made the villain of Harriet's story, and repeats that she doesn't know where Shelley is. She's heard about his betrayal and lies, but she will stand her ground. Unbeknownst to her, Mary Jane heard the whole conversation and connected the dots. Mary is in a romantic relationship with Shelley, and he's a married man. It's scandalous. She wants to confirm it, and forces Claire to tell her the truth. Dinner that day is silent and awkward. Mary Jane mentions that Harriet is very pretty, and Shelley almost chokes on his food. He had no idea they had found out he's married. Mary doesn't know who she wants to throttle more, Shelley or her stepmother, for purposefully bringing it up. Shelley explains that he's married on paper only, and that there's no love between him and Harriet. He still supports her and their daughter financially, but that's all. Later on, after everyone is sleeping, Shelley meets Mary. He begs her to understand his side of the story and that his marriage has no love or passion anymore. He is in love with Mary and wants to move on with her, not Harriet. Mary doesn't know what to think. She's angry at Shelley for blatantly lying to her, but she also loves him deeply. He's everything she ever hoped for in a lover, and it would be hard to let him go. Mary leaves Shelley without an answer to his proposal that they run away together. Days go by. Mary feels suffocated in her father's house with Shelley's constant presence. She sees him every day and has to act as if she's not affected by him. It's hard. Not only that, but she misses the life she had in Scotland. London has lost its appeal to her, and she longs to travel to new places. Claire shares her wishes, and the two of them promise each other to travel together one day. To make things worse for Mary, Mary Jane starts pestering her again. She insults Mary's mother and says that she's glad Mary is not following in her footsteps by being in a relationship with Shelley. Mary's tired of Mary Jane's constant bickering and how small-minded she is. She has no idea how her father could marry such a conservative woman. Mary informs her that she has no desire to do what Mary Jane believes is proper. She will do what she wants, no matter her reputation. After arguing with her stepmother, Mary rushes to her room, feeling angry and frustrated. She's tired of Mary Jane trying to fit her into a mold and not respecting her mother. In her room, Mary finds a poem from Shelley, talking about his desire to kiss her. She makes up her mind at that moment. She doesn't care about her family's reputation, or Harriet and her daughter. She wants to be with Shelley, and she will have him. Running towards the cemetery, she finds Shelley there waiting for her. He starts to apologize, but Mary jumps into his arms and kisses him passionately. The only thing she thinks about is how sweet it is to be in his presence, and how addicted she is to him. Later that day, they talk to William about their relationship, believing they will have his support. Much like Mary, William fell in love with her mother, and only married her so that Mary wouldn't be an illegitimate daughter. Mary truly thinks her father will understand her choice, but it's quite the opposite. William knows Shelley's character, and he's afraid he will take advantage of Mary's naivete. She is in love, but love in a world filled with prejudices is hard. She will be ostracized from society for being the mistress of a married man. Mary can't believe her father is against their relationship, much less Shelley. He admired William and his ideals, but when push comes to shove, William is as conservative as everyone else. Shelley is mad at him and promises to come back for Mary when William kicks him out of the house. That same evening, Mary runs away from home with Claire on her trail. Claire begged Mary to take her away, and she agreed. Shelley is waiting for them in a carriage, and he takes them to a lodge he rented on the outskirts of town. It's not fancy, but for Mary, it's everything she could have ever wanted. They get intimate for the first time, sealing their fate as a couple. Things are blissful for a few days. Mary and Claire have the freedom to do whatever they want to, and they usually spend their days drinking and reading. As for Shelley, he tries publishing a new book, but it's not successful. Not only that, but his father cuts him off for leaving his wife and daughter for another woman. He doesn't have enough money to take care of Mary and Claire. Mary's family isn't doing so well either. One day, while shopping, she meets her father. He's trying to sell a rare copy of a book he has, much to Mary's shock. After losing Shelley and the money he brought, the family needs to make ends meet. The meeting isn't pleasant or heartfelt, as Mary would have hoped for. Her father still believes she made a mistake, but now she's on her own. A few days later, Shelley shows up with some money he got from a debt owed to him. He buys a science kit and new dresses for Mary. They are also able to move to a proper house. Things are looking up for them, and life couldn't be happier. Deep down, though, Mary still feels the weight of her father's words and misses him. She feels guilty for enjoying life so much while her father struggles. Mary also finds out she's pregnant, and she isn't sure how to feel about it. She never had a mother, and she fears she will fail. Shelley assures her she won't, but Mary soon finds out that his words and promises are meaningless. Much like he did to Harriet, Shelley starts showing his true colors. After Mary gives birth, he and Claire start having an affair, and they don't even try to hide it. Mary is plagued by how her life seems to be falling apart. Shelley and Claire have no financial control, and they love to spend money on meaningless things. They throw parties and dinners all the time, and Mary worries they will run out of money. Shelley is their only income, as she can't write with the worry and anxiety plaguing her mind. One day, Shelley's friend Mr. Hogg is invited to have dinner with them, and he's taken by Mary. She's beautiful and smart, and he knows Shelley isn't giving her the attention she seeks. The day after dinner, he goes to the house while Shelley isn't there. He tries to kiss Mary by force, but she pushes him away. Mary feels awful after that. All the men in her life seem to see her as an object, to use and throw away like they want to. She's distraught and nervous that Shelley will break up with her when he finds out. His reaction is the opposite of what she expects, though. Shelley confesses to her that he sees no problem with her taking a lover, much like he did with Claire. Mary can't believe what she's hearing. It's like a slap to her face, but she should have seen it coming. Shelley believes in free love, and that means loving whoever he wants at any time. The issue is that Mary's heart belongs to him alone, and it hurts to see him with Claire. After their argument, for the first time, Mary feels as if she made a mistake. She remembers that her curse in life is to be abandoned and to be alone. The only relief she gets from her pain is to write. Shelley soon realizes that he hurt Mary, and he tries to make amends. Although he's a libertine, he genuinely loves Mary. He wants to see her happy, and what's more, he wants her to get rid of the ties that bind her. He invites Mary to go out with him and Claire, and takes her to an opera. There, they meet a famous poet named Lord Byron. During the play, Mary is enchanted by the concept of bringing passed-away people back to life. It gives her an idea for her own story. Months later, Mary gives birth to a daughter, and the couple is happy. Claire is jealous of the family, and decides to go after Lord Byron. A few months later, though, the family's bliss is once again ripped away. After borrowing money to keep their lavish lifestyle, Shelley has no way to pay his debts, and they have to run. It's raining a lot, and very cold when they rush out of their house. Mary doesn't want to go, because her baby has fragile health and shouldn't be in the cold. At Shelley's insistence, though, she relents. Mary's baby passes away from a disease not long after, and Mary blames Shelley. She is depressed and can't get out of bed anymore. Shelley begs for her to get up and move on, afraid that he will lose her too, but Mary can't. She can't bear the thought of losing such a pure soul as her baby, and feels guilty for putting an innocent through that ordeal. Once again, the couple is at odds with each other. Claire takes that opportunity to get closer to Shelley and warm his bed, while Mary isn't available. One day, Mary dreams of her daughter, and it's the first time she finds strength to get up. She starts writing, but stops when she hears Claire whispering love confessions to Shelley. Mary feels angry and betrayed by her best friend, but she keeps it inside. Still, after that day, Mary doesn't stay in bed all day long anymore. Some time later, Claire, who has become Lord Byron's lover, informs Mary that the famous poet is inviting them to go to Geneva with him. It's an amazing opportunity to create connections, but Mary isn't excited about it. Claire announces they have to go, because she's pregnant with Byron's child. When Shelley arrives, he, too, is excited about the prospect of getting closer to Byron. Mary warns him that she isn't ready for this, still too hurt about her baby, but Shelley insists. They go to Lord Byron's estate in Geneva. Lord Byron is a charming and eccentric young man. His poems are famous for being subversive. He greets Shelley with a kiss on his mouth and compliments Mary. When he reaches Claire, he points out that he should never mention a trip around her, because she took it as an invitation. Mary's embarrassed by her friend's behavior, but Byron promises that it's all right, because he was getting bored. There's another guest there, a man named Dr. Polidori. He's a physician and a friend of Byron's. After dinner, Byron invites Shelley to have a drink, and Shelley tells Mary to stay with Dr. Polidori and Claire. The dismissal hurts Mary and makes her feel like a dog left behind by its owner. Swallowing her pride and bitterness, she follows Dr. Polidori. The man isn't as flamboyant or dramatic as Byron or Shelley. Mary feels more comfortable with him than Byron, and they have fun talking about the poet. As the days go by, Mary constantly gets more uncomfortable, especially with Claire and Shelley's demonstrations of affection in public. She wants to throw up whenever she sees them together, and she isn't the only one feeling disgusted by them. Byron, Claire's lover, doesn't like it either. Polidori recognizes Mary's penchant for science and gives her articles about it. He's also the only one to offer sincere condolences for Mary's loss. As a physician, he has witnessed mothers losing children many times, and he knows it's painful. He admires Mary for her tenacity and strength to remain standing, even after suffering so much. Mary's heart warms to Polidori, and she sees in him a friend. The same can't be said about Byron. Mary's too smart for his tastes. He prefers women to be smart, but not overly so. Mary can see beyond his facade of flamboyance, and he finds it both admirable and annoying. Claire is once again jealous of Mary and the fact that men take her seriously. No one compliments Claire's intelligence, only her abilities in between sheets. It bothers her that Mary's always the favorite, no matter where they go. Weeks go by, and the rainy season starts. With nothing else to do but stay locked up inside, people start going mad. During a particularly bad storm, Byron has an idea. They are each going to write a horror story, and whoever writes the best one wins. The only person Byron excludes from this game is Claire, and she's offended. Byron humiliates her by calling her a silly little girl, and that he doesn't even consider her a lover. Claire finally realizes that no matter how hard she tries, she's only good enough for one thing. Mary is mad at Byron for the way he treated Claire, and goes after her when she runs. While Mary is out in the rain running after Claire, a very drunk Shelley receives a letter. He's distraught after he reads it. Mary finds Claire and comforts her when she complains about the men. It's about time Claire found out that men only want one thing from women, and they have to look after themselves. When they return to the estate, Claire goes after Lord Byron to inform him she's pregnant, and Mary goes to her room to sleep alone. She has a nightmare of a strange man resurrecting a creature. The dream strikes a chord in her, and she decides to write it. The following morning, Mary shows up for breakfast and wonders about Shelley. The man appears drunk out of his mind, and looks sick. He spent the night away in a tavern. Mary doesn't know whether to be worried or disgusted about his state. Shelley quickly solves the issue for her. Polidori mentions that he started his story called Vampire, and Shelley makes fun of it. He offends Polidori, and the two get into a physical fight, with Polidori punching Shelley. He apologizes for Mary's misfortune for being Shelley's lover, and leaves. Byron can feel the tension between Mary and Shelley, and also leaves. Shelley proceeds to accuse Mary of cheating on him with Polidori, and she wonders where he has been the whole night. He gets mad at her, but eventually admits why he's so distraught. He learned Harriet took and he feels terribly guilty. Mary decides that it's time for them to leave Geneva. Shelley is in shambles and can barely stand, and Claire is heartbroken after Byron dismissed her. He informs her he will support the child, but that's all. Mary packs her bags for her and goes to say goodbye to Byron. The poet is under no illusions that Mary doesn't like him, especially not after getting Claire pregnant. He explains to her that he never loved Claire, nor did he pretend to. She knew what she was getting into the whole time. Mary disagrees with him, much to Byron's amusement. He admires Mary a lot, despite her antipathy towards him. She's a smart woman, and he looks forward to reading something she writes someday. After weeks of living in his estate, they go back to their poor lodgings. Shelley and Claire are still distraught. Mary decides to start writing the same day they return. For days, the only thing on her mind is writing. The words flow as she takes from her own experiences in life. Pain, misery, happiness, and joy all blend together to create a masterpiece. When she finishes it, she hands it to Shelley to read and give his opinion. He's very happy that she finally got to write her own novel. Shelley loves it, but he wants her to change some things. Mary disagrees with him. Shelley wants the creature to be an angel, but Mary wants him to be exactly how she wrote, the mirror of human greed. Mary sees herself in the creature. How Shelley took her away from her life and made her into something she can't recognize anymore. The way their actions had severe consequences for all of them. Shelley understands her reasoning, though it hurts him. Once again, he feels guilty for being too greedy and thoughtless of other people's feelings. After their talk, Mary decides to take her book to a publisher. Unfortunately for her, being a woman, things are not so easy. The publisher doesn't believe she's the writer, thinking it's too advanced for a young girl to write. Mary is offended and goes back to the lodging. Claire is there, waiting for her with tears in her eyes. She also read the manuscript, and she understood what it was about. More than Shelley ever could, Claire could feel in her bones the loneliness and despair of Mary's character. She believes many people will understand and feel a connection to it too. Mary tries many other publishers, but they all deny her request. Only one gives her the time of the day. It's a small publishing house, and even they only agree to print it if it's anonymous, and Shelley writes the preface. Mary isn't happy about it at all. Under those circumstances, Shelley will take the credit for her work. When she points that out for him, he shrugs her worries away. Mary finally loses her patience with him, and they get into a huge argument, in which Mary admits her regret for believing in Shelley. Weeks go by, and Mary's book, Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, is published. She dedicates the book to her father, and when he reads it, he immediately recognizes it belongs to Mary. He gets emotional and feels his heart breaking. Despite the way they left each other, William misses Mary a lot. One day, Polidori shows up at the lodge full of bruises on his face and a copy of his book. Sadly, the book isn't in his name, but Lord Byron's. Byron's publisher thought Polidori was plagiarizing Byron, and now everyone believes the book belongs to Byron. Mary and Polidori share a common injustice, because everyone thinks Frankenstein was written by Shelley. When Polidori asks about Shelley, Mary informs him that she hasn't seen him in months. After Polidori leaves, leaving the copy of his book with Mary, she finds an invitation from her father inside. There will be a party to celebrate Frankenstein, and he wants her to come. Mary inconspicuously shows up to the party filled with men. Her father, who hasn't seen her yet, gives a speech about the greatness of the book. He, too, understands the main subject in the book, which is abandonment, and the need for love that human beings always seek. As he talks, he finally sees Mary there, which is surprising. Before he can say anything, though, Shelley shows up and starts talking about the book. Mary is surprised and confused about his presence there, and she's fully expecting him to take the credit for her work. Much to Mary's astonishment, Shelley gives the proper credit to her. People are shocked that such a great book was written by a woman, but they shouldn't be. Mary approaches Shelley after his confession and admits that without the hardships they went through, she wouldn't have found her voice. In the end, though it hurt to lose so much and feel so lonely, Mary was able to overcome her adversities and thrive. They make their peace, and Shelley proposes to her. Years later, William publishes a second edition of Frankenstein, this time with Mary's name on it. He's very proud of his daughter and what she accomplished by herself. Mary has another kid with Shelley, this time a boy, and the two of them stay together until Shelley passes away in an accident years later.